Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Words with Me podcast. If you are watching this, I hope you are doing so well. If you're watching or listening, I've been well. It's been a minute. It's been more than a minute, definitely. It's been months actually, but I'm trying to get more consistent with the schedule. I'm just trying to actually take the time to make the content and the things that I want to. So, thanks for joining me again. Right now, it is December. It is close to the end of the year, and we haven't quite gotten there yet, but my mind has been so focused on just the end of the year and how much I've grown as a person, and really just doing the things to set my goals and intentions for the next year. I think reflecting on this year for me, I've definitely had a lot of opportunities to get more familiar with who I am as a person, to prioritize my mental health, and really just take chances and try new things. And, you know, keeping that up in 2022 is probably one of the things that I'm going to be focused on. But there's been a lot of just growth and effort that I've experienced, and I just want to make sure that I can keep that going forward. So I know for myself, I would consider myself a late bloomer. I'm in my mid 20s right now, and the next birthday that's gonna come up in January, I'll actually be closer to 30 than anything, which is kind of scary, but that's how it goes. Circle of life, whatever. But I think in the past, I felt like I was a late bloomer because other people were experiencing things or doing things at different times than I was, and for whatever reason, it just felt like I should have been doing that too. And I think part of it is just the conditioning we get when we're kids. So we see all these movies in high school, read all these books, and you kind of have this idea in your head of, okay, by the time I graduate high school, or by the time I turn 20, I should already have these things. I know for myself, at one point, I thought when I reached a certain age in my 20s, like I'd be married and I'd have kids. And looking back on that now, no, I do not want kids right now. And it would have been a bad idea to actually have kids at that time for a lot of reasons. But I think part of that for me was just the way I was conditioned, the way that I was brought up, the things I learned from books and movies, and how it shaped my view of the world and how it made me think I needed to be. A lot of the stuff that we talk about, it can be things that happened to you when you were a kid, things that happened to you when you were in high school, and it's still your experiences, right? Those are still important things that shaped who you are as a person, and we shouldn't discount them just because they were things that happened to us in high school or things that happened to us in middle school, because it still shapes who we are. Fast forward now, and I'm kind of just starting to experience new things for myself. One of the things I want to do, I want to go out on nice trips. I put like a self-imposed airplane travel ban on myself during the pandemic, which we're still in the pandemic. But I want to take solo trips, go on vacations, meet new people, just experience new things in life. I think life is something we shouldn't take for granted. And, I'm always just grateful to be alive, grateful to have all these new experiences. And I want to make sure that I'm really stepping into who I know myself to be, who I know that I can be, and it can be intimidating sometimes. One of the things that I recently learned was that, your limiting beliefs, they can keep you from actually stepping into that person that you want to be. So I know for myself, I feel like I've always had this sense that there was just more out there, that there was just more for me to do and to achieve, and there was like a block or something that I couldn't understand that was keeping me from actually achieving those things or doing those things. So like you might start off on a new project and you're going strong for the first few months or so, and then at some point it kind of dies off and you leave it hanging for a bit, kind of like the podcast. Maybe you have a goal of going out and meeting new people, or just experiencing new things and just being adventurous and taking risks. And some of the things that keep you from doing that are limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are based off of the things that you've experienced in the past. So either something somebody said, something someone did to you, it struck a chord and it formed a limiting belief. So, one of the limiting beliefs that I struggled with was just not feeling like I was enough, feeling like I wasn't good enough, period. And growing up, I did compare myself a lot to a lot of people. I have a birthmark on my leg, it's pretty big, and I was so insecure about it, and I felt like something was wrong with me because, one, nobody else had the same thing I did, and two, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to just try to fit in and things. So, my mind, back then being a child, thought that the best thing that I could do was just to hide it and, essentially just kind of hide myself away so I wasn't drawing attention to myself so that people wouldn't ask me about it. It felt easier to kind of avoid the problem than to deal with it. And of course, I was young, I was a kid, I didn't know any better, but it's crazy to think just the limiting beliefs that we might have about ourselves, how they are formed when we are young, and how we can respond to those things. Like really looking back, I was being mean to myself. And I had a therapy session, I was just writing about it and thinking about it and talking about it, and it was like, dang, I was really mean to myself, and I don't know why I was that mean, but yeah, I mean, you really think that you're helping yourself in those situations when you're just hurting yourself. So even with socializing or meeting new friends as an adult, you might hide yourself away, or you might think that it's easier for me to avoid meeting new people, and it could be because maybe you don't feel like you're good enough, or maybe you feel like everybody's gonna judge you, or you feel like something's just gonna go wrong. I mean, all of those things are limiting beliefs, and if you don't address those things and really tackle them, it could affect the rest of your life going forward. I know from personal experience, having gone through it myself, that actually identifying those things, talking about those things, and coming face to face with maybe the things that you did that didn't help you, it can be really hard, I mean, tears were shed, words were written, it was a whole process. But yeah, I mean, it can be really hard. And I think the most important thing that you can do is just give yourself grace in that moment to understand that, maybe what you did back then wasn't the best, but moving forward, you can learn from it. And now you can dedicate yourself to treating yourself better, to actually loving yourself and allowing other people to love you back. And it's a process, it's a part of the journey, but it's definitely one worth going on, and definitely worth taking that risk for yourself. So I guess kind of talking about all of that stuff, I know I have goals in mind, and I've talked about it before. Like for the year, I don't like to look at the year in quartiles. It just doesn't work for me. It works for other people. And when it comes to goal setting, there's definitely other tips and tricks that you can use, best practices that might suit you a bit more. But for me, I don't like to look at the year in quartiles. I just like to kind of set my short-term goals and my long-term goals, and sticking to those goals can be hard sometimes, because it takes a lot of intention and discipline and follow through and focus. And sometimes when maybe your mental health isn't where it should be, where it could be, or maybe when you are struggling with limiting beliefs, it can make it even harder to stick through those goals. So procrastination, obviously we all deal with procrastination, but I think it's something that you kind of have to work through, like discipline. Discipline's a muscle that needs to be strengthened, and you need to keep exercising it and allowing it to grow stronger. And procrastination sometimes kind of comes in and just wipes away everything that you worked for, kind of makes a clean slate. So now you got to start over again and do even more work to catch up on your goals. And I don't want that to happen for me. All of that aside, I know for myself, I want to be consistent with the podcast. So doing, at least one episode a month would be helpful for me. I'm also working on just socializing more, trying to work through some social anxieties, limiting beliefs, things like that. So I'm also trying to get out and do something new, be more social. I say once a month, but whenever works. And I think with those things, the small goals, it's always important just to have steps laid out. So, what's the goal that you have in mind, and how exactly is it that you're going to get there? And I like to focus on the small goals and kind of work my way up to the larger goals, just because it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. So, if I have this grand goal of starting a business and doing $1 million in sales in the first year, which I'm not doing, but obviously that's not always like the most realistic goal. So something like that. But yeah, like the small, tangible goals that you can kind of knock off slowly, that's kind of where I am right now. And I think for myself, I just don't want to put too much pressure. And I think a good tip for everybody who's watching or listening, don't feel pressure to do everything, to be everything, to accomplish every single thing in like the shortest amount of time possible. There's always a lot of time that you still have to work through those things. So even if you don't accomplish the goal when you said you would, okay, there's still time in the year to make up for that, to actually accomplish it. You're not doing something wrong if you're not sticking to, this schedule or this prescribed calendar that somebody else told you should stick to. The goal is always going to be the goal. Whether or not you reach it, it depends on your work ethic, your discipline, your focus. But you don't have to rush to finish all those things. There's still time. And I think that's something that I've been learning to do even with work. So I think it's easy to kind of rush and feel like you need to work through every single little thing. But I know for myself, I work better when I space things out. So I don't have to do everything in one day. If it takes me 2 or 3 days, that's fine. If I have to take a break every now and then, or kind of slow down and not rush to get everything completed, that's fine. You're supposed to take breaks. There's nothing wrong with taking breaks. And like in my own life, my sister, she started a new job and everything, so she's obviously learning the ropes and things. And I haven't been in my job for long. It's been a couple years and months now. But I think when you first start out in something like that, it's always easy to kind of overwork yourself or to push yourself too hard because you want to get the thing done and you want to show everybody that you're capable. Because I've been there. If you are trying to get a new job in the new year, if you're trying to start a new job in the new year, it's okay to pace yourself. If you don't get something right away, if you have a question or you're confused, it's always okay to ask those questions and clarify, because it's something new to you and you're not always going to have the answers straight away. And I think the same thing applies in life. There's so many things that can happen in a day, right? And I know for myself that there's still lots of questions that I have about life. There's still things that I haven't experienced. There's still things I'm not sure of. And in those moments where I feel like I need some help, the best thing that I can do for myself is, ask somebody that's gone through it, ask somebody in my family, ask a friend, just kind of get that advice. And we don't need to know everything. And I think we talked about that before. In the quarter life crisis video, which I definitely recommend you watch. It's great. Or listen to that podcast episode. But it's easy to kind of feel this pressure to just know everything and do everything, and you don't have to. And I think the next year, my motto is choose you in 2022. And I think that's focusing on being positive and helpful to myself in all aspects of my life. So mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically too. Just making sure that I'm in the best shape, form that I possibly can be, and doing it for myself. Looking back on everything, I've gotten to this point now where it's okay for me to actually focus on doing things for myself, enjoying my life, and just doing the best that I can for myself. And I feel more, I guess, mature. Feel more mature going through this year. I feel more prepared to go forward and actually experience new things in life and really just step into this best version of myself. So I talk about, being the best version of yourself, striving to become the highest version of yourself in my case. And, what does that mean? So that obviously means different things to different people, but I know in myself where, I see myself where I envision myself being, who I envision myself becoming. And I just started trying to do, visualizations every night, just looking back, writing it down, thinking about who I want to be, what I want to become. And for me, I always envision, this confident woman who's put together, who knows herself, who's not afraid to go for things in life, who allows other people to see her fully and to be her best self, to go for things, accomplish things, smash goals, just this amazing person. And I had a thought, I think, kind of working through those limiting beliefs in the past, where it felt like I almost needed to become somebody else or be somebody else before I could actually get to that state where I was that person. And if you're experiencing something like that too, you don't need to change and become this different person in order to step into the fullness of who you are. You are fine as you are. If you want to improve, you can improve. If you want to change, you can. But it's not like you need to get to a certain destination before you can actually start the change. You can start today. You can start now. And part of that, it doesn't always involve, getting a makeover. It doesn't involve drastic changes. I know for myself, I don't work too well with drastic changes. I do better with gradual changes. And for me, some of the gradual changes have been kind of cementing my routines. So like in the morning, before I check emails and phones and things, I'll journal, I'll meditate. If I have time, I'll do some yoga. And then at night, do a little therapy session with myself. I started using this, it's called Bloom. It's a cognitive behavioral therapy app. But I started using that, and I'll do a session, if I remember, every night. Kind of just do some reflections, visualizations, things like that. And I think those small changes definitely make more of an impact than, say, making a drastic change overnight. And just being patient with yourself. I think we have to learn to be patient with ourselves, even with our goals. Even when we do want to become that person, you still have to be patient. And it's not gonna be overnight, but it's perfectly fine. Why am I, talking and saying all these things and, all this stuff? For me, I'm kind of using this, number one, to help you, whoever's listening and watching, but also to kind of just keep a record for myself. I really want to look back at the end of 2022 when we get there and just, see how far I've come, to see the chances that I took, the risks that I took, and I want to become that person, I just have this desire inside of me to become that woman that I've always envisioned, and to always just strive for the best that I possibly can, to work in my best interest, to focus on myself. I want all those things. I want everything, But yeah, I really just want that. And I feel like 2022 is going to be different. I feel like it's going to be such a big change. I know for myself, just because of the work that I've already done even in this year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next year. I know we're still in the panini, but we're hopefully gonna get through. And anybody that's affected by the pandemic, it's been a long time, so it's understood if there's some stress and there's some fatigue and some worries and things like that, because it's definitely our favorite word, it's an unprecedented time. But yeah, I mean, it's been such a crazy 2 years, like 2020, 2021, and a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do, things that I wanted to try to accomplish, I didn't necessarily get to, for different reasons, but also because of the pandemic in part. And yeah, next year I just want to kind of take the limits off of myself. I want to kind of eliminate all those self-limiting beliefs, work through those things, and put things into practice to help me grow and become the best version of myself that I possibly can. So if you got to the end of this episode, thanks so much for being here, for just taking the time to listen to whatever I have to say. I genuinely appreciate it, and I want to go forward and just put more effort into this. it can definitely be hard, with schedules and things like that. But let me know if there's anything that you want to see, any content that you want from me, anything you want to hear. I'm always doing things to grow and improve. So there's always something to talk about. There's always something to learn. But this episode was kind of just a word dump of the things I've been thinking, the things I've been going through in this year, and kind of my expectations of what I'm looking forward to for 2022. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this episode. Definitely reach out. Let me know if you have any questions, anything that you want from me. And happy, end of the year. We're not at the new year yet, but just take this time to look back on everything that you accomplished. Look back on all the stuff that you did and pat yourself on the back, because we're getting to the end of 2021, and you did that. So thanks so much for getting to this, and I hope everybody has a great holiday season, everybody has a great end of the year, has a great new year, and look forward to more content from me. Great, thanks. Bye.